Hello, 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 everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Happy Saturday, everyone, and also happy 4th of July, American Independence Day, 250th anniversary of America's independence. I hope you guys are having a great day here today. And we're going to be doing a very special flight to honor America's 250th birthday here today. We're going to be doing some flying around the northeastern United States, of course. We're going to fly from Boston down to Washington, D.C., the nation's capital. So we're going to be doing some pretty exciting flying here today, of course, for all of it. So we're going to be doing some really exciting flying. Before we get started, I do want to say hello to everyone in chat, all the lurkers and mods. I hope you're all having a good day here today. So here's kind of a bit of our flight plan. So I wanted to do historical sites that have a lot of connections with the United States. So we'll start here with the original capital here in Boston, which is one of the major colonial cities here in the States. So we'll fly over Boston. We'll make our way to the Constitution Museum, the North End, in the Massachusetts State House. Once we fly there, we'll head our way up north. We'll visit Minuteman National Historic Park. We'll be flying over quite a few of the houses here. We'll also be flying over the North Bridge, where the American Revolution got shot, of the American Revolution. Then from there, we'll head up west. We'll head over to Springfield, Massachusetts. We'll pay a visit to the Springfield Armory National Historical Site for Springfield Armory. Then from there, we'll head on south over through Hartford, Connecticut. And then from Hartford, we'll make our way to our first stop at Kilo Hotel Papa November. Located in White Plains, New York, just north of New York City. Then from there, we'll head down to New York City proper, fly over the Statue of Liberty in the Big Apple. We'll then head southwest. We'll make our way over to Princeton, then cross over and visit the Washington Crossing, where of course George Washington made his famous crossing of the Delaware River back during the American Revolution. Then we'll make our way over to the city of Philadelphia. We'll pay a visit to Independence Hall and the Liberty Bell. This is where many of the places of the delegation of the Declaration of Independence was signed. We'll make a stop at Philadelphia International for our second stop of the day. And then the third and final leg, we'll head down over to Baltimore, Maryland with Fort McHenry, site of the Battle of Baltimore during the War of 1812, and where our national anthem was actually written at by Francis Scott Key. And finally, we'll head down over to the nation's capital, D.C. We'll pay a visit to the Capitol Building, the Washington Monument, the White House, Lincoln Memorial, and the Pentagon, before we make our way to Ronald Reagan National Airport here in D.C. So yeah, it should be a nice flight today. Got a lot of places to visit, of course. We'll take one of my favorite planes, of course, the Douglas DC-3, one of my favorite planes. I thought this would be perfect. What could be better for 4th of July than flying one of the most classic aircraft, American aircraft in the world, the Douglas DC-3. So, incredible stuff. So our first leg will take us through the city of Boston. I'm going to go ahead and get started with the slides. So we'll start our trip in Boston, Massachusetts. Boston is Massachusetts' capital and most populous city, and it serves as a cultural and financial center of New England. Population 675,000. Metro is 4.9 million. The city was founded in 1630 by English Puritan settlers and named it after the market town of Boston, Lincolnshire from England. Boston was a major part during the American Revolution and Revolutionary War, with several major events, including the Boston Massacre in 1770, the Boston Tea Party in 1773, Paul Revere's Midnight Riot in 1775, the Battle of Bunker Hill in the same year, and the Siege of Boston, which lasted from 1775 to 1776. After independence, of course, Boston played a major role as a port, manufacturing hub, and education and cultural center. And Boston's many firsts include the nation's first public park, first public school, and the first subway system. Nowadays, Boston is a global leader in higher education and research. With nearly 5,000 startup companies, it's a major pioneer in innovation, entrepreneurship, and artificial intelligence. So yeah, Boston, really cool city. I've been to it twice so far. I really enjoyed both trips to Boston. It's a nice city, very underrated place to visit. Um, Tons of cultural stuff, lots of historical buildings to visit. The old State House, the Old Corner Bookstore, um, the Massachusetts State House. Sports are insanely big here too, especially the Red Sox and Celtics are especially big here in the city. Really cool stuff. So yeah, really cool stuff. Hey, good to see you, J.R. Delaney. We're about to make our start from Boston, so we just got a little bit of a briefing. So let's go ahead and turn the magnetos. So we're just getting the DC3 started. It's been a bit since I did the DC3. Let's see if I can still get it. Fantastic. I wonder if I did something wrong. I need to turn on the primer. Okay. If the live engine wasn't going to turn on, so we're going to go ahead and taxi. Now here. Yeah, for some reason the left engine does not want to turn on in the Douglas DC3. So it's been a while since I've operated the DC3. It's been quite a long time. So, of course, if you guys all know the Douglas DC-3, if you guys don't know about this amazing aircraft, the DC-3 is one of the most iconic airliners of the pre-World War II era. It was manufactured by Douglas, of course, from 1936 to 1942, and then reintroduced in 1950. 607 of DC-3s were built. Of course, many more of these planes were built for the military during World War II, as the C-47, and over 10,000 of those beauties were built. But the Douglas DC-3 is still in service after all of these years. Even I still have a hard time believing the DC-3 was still in service, even after all these years. That makes it even more impressive considering the DC-3 is still being flown even in the 21st century with modern jets and turboprops. The fact that this thing's still flying is pretty insane. It's a classic. And there are not many that are like that anymore. Over 90 years, even though the number is dwindling because there's not a lot of parts, but mainly the people who fly DC-3s now are revenue service, cargo aircraft, or air charters. But they've done all sorts of things with this. From missionary flying, military transport, aerial spraying, and more. Very old, and apparently they now have turboprop variants from the Basser BT-67 that can be used for cold weather. But like I said, this plane still has lasted the test of time. It's one of the greatest aircraft ever built. So we're gonna do some flying into Boston. So here is the USS Constitution. Here, see the ship over here at the dock. Um, so. This old ship by the docks is Old Ironsides. The USS Constitution, of course. Still the oldest ship in the United States Navy. Good old USS Constitution. She's an oldie but goodie. Still serving strong. So yeah, here's downtown Boston. So here's downtown Boston for you. So you can see all these historic buildings here in the city. We're going to make our way down over to Concord. My apologies. Like I said, I'm not. It's been a while since I've been on this gyropilot, so. So, like I said, it's been a while. I'm gonna have to get used to being back to this thing. Like I said, very. It's gonna take me a bit of a while. So like it's gonna take me a bit. So. So. So we're gonna now officially head our way over to. We're going to officially head our way to our next stop in our slideshow. We're going to be making our way over to Minuteman National Historic Park here near Concord and Lincoln. It features the Old North Bridge where the Battle of Concord began back in 1775, the Wayside, a home that interned 3 noted American authors. It became part of the National Park Service. It protects 970 acres of land. It was established back in September 21st, 1959, and around just about under 1 million people visited here last year. Some of the sites here include Concord's famous Old North Bridge, where the Battle of Concord began in 1775. Then you also have the well-known Minuteman statue that was built in 1874 by Daniel Chester French. The 5-minute Battle Road Trail, which is a restored colonial landscape with a path of running skirmishes. The Wayside, a National Historic landmark, was home to Concord Muster Master Samuel Whitney, and later became home to the authors Almost Bronson Alcott and his daughter Louisa May Alcott, Nathan Hawthorne, and Margaret Sidney, and Barrett Farm, home of Colonel James Barrett. It's the newest addition to the National Historic Park, and it was the destination of British regulars who crossed the North Bridge. So lots of cool stuff, lots of cool sites out here in this National Historic Site. So we should fly over to our left. So here it is, the National Historic Park. So here it is, guys. We have Concord and Lexington nearby. This is where the American Revolution got started, right around this location, of course. Pretty cool stuff here. So, pretty big stuff, of course. So yeah, this was where the American Revolution started. Of course, if you guys don't know about American history, the American Revolution officially lasted from 1775 to 1783. The 13 colonies declared independence and against Great Britain. Of course, it took many years, but the turning point of the war was Ticonderoga in New York. When they captured the fort, it was enough to convince the French to join the war against England with the help of the French. And it was able to convince the war and led to the decisive battle for the Battle of Yorktown in 1781 was the official final battle of Yorktown. It was truly the final battle in the American Revolution, and it would be a win for the American Revolutionists, and it created the United States of America back in the Treaty of Paris. And that's how the Revolution. There were several major battles, but I cover some of the more important ones here in the Revolution. But there were many historic battles that broke out, but again, but it was a big win for the United States. So, pretty important stuff, of course. So we'll be making our way over to Springfield next. So I do want to talk about some things that happened yesterday. Of course, we have La Liga. We had the World Cup yesterday. Yesterday was some absolutely crazy matches yesterday in this World Cup, and none of them was bigger than, of course, first off was Australia and Egypt, and that was an absolute cracker of a game. As it went down to extra time, it went to penalty shootout. It ended up being costly for Australia. And Egypt was able to beat Australia in 4-2 on penalties to make it to their first round 16 since 1934. And it's their first ever knockout win for Egypt. So Australia are out. The Socceroos failed to advance, of course. Big blow for the Aussies, but a massive win for Egypt. That definitely is going to help Egypt. They could be a sneaky team. Then, of course, the match of the night was next. Argentina and Cabo Verde. Unbelievably, this game went to extra time. Messi scored first to score his 20th, which becomes the first player to ever score 20 World Cup goals. Duarte equalized for Cape Verde. Then Lisandro Martinez puts them in the lead in the 92nd minute of extra time. Only before Sidney Lopez Cabral managed to get a goal in the 103rd minute in one of the goals of the tournament. And then, of course, an own goal by Borges ends up giving Argentina the 3-2 win. What an absolutely insane match that was. Cabo Verde won everyone's hearts, of course. And finally, the last match was much less eventful. Colombia has completely dominated Ghana. A big goal, though, for Arias, and that got him the win for Colombia. So they make it to the round 16. And that officially ends the matches, of course, for the round 32. Today, we have some pretty big knockout games today. We have Canada and Morocco, and Paraguay and France is going to be happening today. So, Canada and Morocco should be an interesting one. I think Morocco is going to knock out Canada. Sadly for the Canadians, I think this is where the road for Canada ends here. The road for Canada officially ends against Morocco. And Paraguay, as good as they were against Germany, France is a completely different beast than Germany. I'm giving the win to France. So that's kind of my predictions for the World Cup. So yeah, let's look at the seer here today. We're flying over the plains of Massachusetts. So yeah, we can see some peaks and hills from the distance. We're reaching to some of the peaks and stuff of Massachusetts. Yes, there are some high points in the state. Crazy, but it's true. So really cool stuff going on here today as well. So pretty important stuff. Like I said, amazing trip though, going on with this. I don't know if this might be on my last Saturday stream for a while. I don't know what the future for Saturday streams, but I guess I'm gonna probably hold off on the Saturday streams for a bit. And the reason I'm thinking about holding the Saturday streams is because, after doing some thinking, I probably want to not do so much on Saturdays as much. So. So we're gonna be flying to our next waypoint on the flight, of course. We'll be making our way over to Springfield Armory National Historic Site. Will be our next waypoint here for the trip. Now, if you guys never heard of the Springfield Armory, this National Historical Site in Springfield is one of the most important, if you talk about American history, this is a very important historical park. Itself. So it's located here in Springfield, Massachusetts, of course. It's one of the protected areas of a historical park. This historical site was the primary center for U.S. firearm manufacture for the military from 1777 until its closure in 1968. It was the first federal armory and the first factory in the United States dedicated to weapons. And the site is preserved nowadays as Springfield Armory National Historic Site, and it features the world's largest collection of historic American firearms. Now, of course, historically, this was famous first is the primary arsenal during the American Revolution, and then is seen as confrontation of Shays' rebellion. Nowadays, in the 19th century, it became the site of numerous technological innovations, interchangeable parts, assembly line style mass production, and modern business practices, such as hourly wages. And it also played a decisive role in the U.S. Civil War, as the factory as it produced most of the weapons in the Union troops, which outpaced the Confederate firearm production 32-1. And of course, Springfield Armory has made quite a few weapons over the years. It's a very historic place. If you're wanting to learn more about military history, this would be an excellent place to visit. Springfield Armory is extremely important to visit. And of course, you have the collection. This thing has tons of collection for the museum. You can look all over the collection, of course, of historic American firearms, and you can look at the collection. You can see all the historic collection stuff from the site. Of course, they produce a lot of the rifles. Springfield rifle, for example, literally translates to Springfield, Massachusetts, where the rifles were built. Now, they produce quite a lot of rifles from the Springfield family rifle. Some of the more famous Springfields include the Springfield Model 1855 and Model 1861, which was used a lot during the Civil War. But of course, in modern days, the most well-known Springfield is the M1903 Springfield that was served as it was a full-action rifle that was used from the Philippine-American War up until the Cambodian Civil War for the United States. It still is today very popular as a civilian firearm, collector's piece, and military drill rifle. Some fun fact about that M1903 Springfield, by the way. It was mainly chambered in 30-06 Springfield, which is one of the most famous rifle calibers in American firearms. And it's still even used to this day, not just for the military, but the 30-06 is a very popular round for sporting use too. It was used a lot of big game hunters. And depending on the grains and stuff, you can hunt things from varmints to even moose and even brown bears, which are big, by the way. You know how big they are, making this a very popular sporting caliber. Teddy Roosevelt even took a 30-06 in Africa and could take down even African animals with it. But it's insanely popular for both. And with that M1903 Springfield, you could shoot this thing. While effective fire range is between 100 and 300 meters, the max fire range is 5,000 meters. It's a very popular weapon, and it was used especially in both world wars, and even Korea. But yeah, very capable sniper, very capable rifle in American military hands. So yeah, a lot of things to go through military history, but they make tons of stuff from the rifles, and they produced all sorts of weapons. They also produced the famous M1 Garand, the rifle that was used during World War II. That a weapon that was so successful during the war. Patton called it the greatest battle implement ever devised by Patton. That's a very popular weapon, of course. That's a very well-known weapon. The M14 was built here too. But yeah, they produce lots of weapons out of there. So definitely check it out, though. Definitely check out the collection. yeah, very interesting stuff with military technology. So that's why I wanted to talk about that for a bit because that armory played a big role in American history. The Revolutionary War, the Civil War, and the World Wars. So it's where a lot of America's gun manufacturing came from to arm the troops, of course. So that's why I wanted to cover that for a bit. Now, a little bit about Springfield, Massachusetts. I don't have anything for Springfield, but I do want to talk briefly about Springfield for a bit. Springfield's population is 155,000. It is the third most populous city of Massachusetts and the fourth most populous city in all of New England, actually. Founded in 1636, it was the first Springfield in the New World and was designated by George Washington as the site of its armory due to its central location, the site of the Shays' Rebellion, and it was also played a pivotal role in the Civil War as a stop on the Underground Railroad and the home of abolitionist John Brown, who you all might know as for his raid on Harper's Ferry in 1859. Nowadays, this city is known as the City at First because this was where many innovations were developed. The first American dictionary, Merriam-Webster, was actually founded here. The first American gas-powered vehicle, and the first machine lathe for interchangeable parts. Lots of really cool stuff, and it's also where basketball was invented by its inventor, Canadian James Naismith. So, pretty important stuff with American history. So, that is why we're going through Springfield, of course. So here it is, guys, Springfield, Massachusetts. We can see the Royal Armory. If you look to our right, we can see the Springfield Armory site right over here. So there's the Springfield Armory location here this morning. So the Armory is located around here. So this is where the Springfield Armory is located here in Springfield. So we're going to go ahead and just so we're going to go ahead and turn our way over to, so yep, there's Springfield. We'll say goodbye to Springfield, Massachusetts. We're going to be heading down to the Big Apple, of course. Yeah, it's actually not so bad now. I got to know how to handle this thing. Like I said, it's been been a while, so I'm gonna get used to it. So here we are. We're flying down to Hartford, Connecticut. Now, Hartford, by the way, which our next stop at next waypoint, Hartford is the largest city in all of Connecticut. It's the capital and largest city in all Connecticut. Population of 121,000. It is one of the oldest cities in the United States, founded back in 1635. It's home to the country's oldest public art museum, the second oldest publicly funded park, the oldest continuously published newspaper, second oldest secondary school, and the oldest school for deaf children, founded by Thomas Hopkins Gallaudet in 1817. It's also the location of the famous Mark Twain House, in which author Mark Twain wrote most of his most famous works. Um, of course, it's named the insurance capital of the world and America's filing cabinet because the city holds high sufficiency as a global city home to headquarters of many insurance companies, the region's major industry. Um, Pretty cool stuff. Hartford doesn't really have a lot for sports. Hartford's cuisine is mainly shaped by early settlers and indigenous food. It has now become quite a culinary food, of course. So, pretty cool stuff here about Hartford. Neat city. So, we'll fly over Hartford before making our way to turn right. And then we'll make our way to our first stop in Hartford. And we'll make our first stop here at White Plains Airport. So, we'll make our first stop here for the July 4th stream, of course. But yeah, I'm thinking about letting go of the July streams on Saturdays. I don't think I'm going to keep those streams very much. For Saturdays, obviously, I'm probably going to instead work on these streams at a different time. So here's Hartford, Connecticut. For some reason, there's no photogrammetry in Hartford for some reason, even though it is Connecticut's biggest city. So, yeah, so this here is Hartford, of course. Yeah, who knows? This would also be good trade if I ever did bring back the DC3 stream, of course. So here we go. So we're heading to our next stop, our first stop of the day, White Plains, New York. So we're going to be flying across Connecticut. So we should be making it. It's about 63 nautical miles to our first stop of the day. So here's our route, by the way, if you guys want to know what's going on. And we're on the Southeast Asian server, is where we're at today. If anyone wants to run on in our closest airport, you can spawn in on 4 Bravo 8 if you guys want to spawn in on in and join along with me. But yeah, looking forward to the World Cup once again. This week's games are going to be nuts. Of course, tomorrow's going to be Brazil in Norway, and then England versus Mexico. And if you guys want to know my thoughts about England and Mexico, I do not think England's beating Mexico. Not at the Azteca, of all places. Mind you, Mexico has only lost at the Azteca twice since 1976. At the Estadio Azteca. But yeah, Mexico has only lost 12 times out of the 145 games at the Azteca. Home crowd, plus the humidity, plus the 7,200 foot altitude. People don't realize playing there is going to be really difficult, especially for England, who historically have never really played anywhere near these level of altitudes at that altitude. That's going to be a very tough place to play, no matter who it is. I think that's going to give Mexico the reason to win. England just simply aren't used to it. And Mexico have been an extremely impressive side in this cup, by the way. I mean, Mexico have been insanely impressive. They haven't even given up a goal all World Cup, which made it even more impressive. They haven't given up a single goal in this year's World Cup, which is insanely impressive. And of course, they absolutely crushed Ecuador, who was used to playing in high altitudes from their home ground Quito. So, yeah, I like Mexico's chances to beat England. I think I like their chances. Yeah, like I said, Mexico is not someone they should take lightly just because they're a North American team. They're good. They've been North America's top nation, most successful nation for decades. So yeah, we're heading to there as well. In terms of other sports as well, I want to cover some of the other sports. For baseball, at least, baseball season, it's not been so good for the Reds, obviously. Um, in terms of baseball, it's not been too great. The Reds, the closest team where I live is the Reds, and they've been not very good this year. 40 and 47 in the National League Central. Not a good year at all for the Reds. It's been a very rough year. Even the Pirates have done better this season. Um, the best team in the American League this season has been the Tampa Bay Rays. They've been absolutely red hot this year. Well ahead of the Yankees and Blue Jays. Um, in the American League West has been ruled by the Texas Rangers, but they're only just a half a game ahead of the Mariners. Of course, the AL West is very close. Even the Angels aren't too far out of it, at 9.5 games back, but they're not that far out of it. The National League East, Braves have been the National League has been the much more dominant league. Especially the Dodgers have been incredible this year. The Brewers have been amazing, and so have been the Braves, for that matter. In terms of the league, of course, the 6 wildcard teams, the Yankees, the division leaders, the Rays, Guardians, and Rangers are the 3 division leaders. And then the wildcard teams for the American League so far would be the Yankees, Guardians, and Mariners. Yankees, White Sox, and Mariners would be the 6 teams that would be in the playoffs if the season ended. In the National League, it would be the Dodgers, Brewers, Braves, representing the division leaders, and then the Cubs, Phillies, and Cardinals in the wild card round. So, pretty big stuff. But I'm looking forward to, of course, the college football season that's going to be coming up. The college football season should be in a couple weeks' time, of course. But yeah, the college football season is not going to start until August 29th is going to be the start of the college football season. So we got some pretty big games coming up in the college football landscape. But yeah, I'm going to have to make some tough choices though when all of this happens, because there will be a college football stream for those weekends. So it's going to be some tough thinking to do. I know Clemson LSU could be a topic we do for one of these game day flights. That could be one of the ones I talk about. So I'll probably let you guys know what I'm thinking, but there are some I think. What's going on? What? Why are we going the wrong direction? Yeah, this is why I should check my nav map every bit of a while. Yeah, lots of stuff going on, of course, but some of the ones I'm thinking about doing for those weeks, Clemson LSU is definitely one. I mean, playing at Death Valley is going to be always difficult. Louisville, Ole Miss, Missouri, Kansas, another border war matchup. Oklahoma and Michigan could be interesting. But like I said, there's going to be some very big matchups. Ohio State, Texas would be big, but I'd like to do mainly these fights GA only, with some exceptions, but General Aviation's mainly the name of the game. So I'll keep a list of some of the things, of course. So, definitely some pretty big stuff, though. Mm-hmm. So we're getting back to White Plains, New York. That'll be our first stop is White Plains. White Plains, New York is located in Westchester County. It's an inner suburb of New York City. Population just around nearly 59,500 people, 6,600 people in 2020. According to the city government, the daytime weekday population is increased fivefold into 250,000 people. White Plains was quite important for Westchester County. A copy of the Declaration of Independence was actually delivered here in the courthouse here in Westchester. And the Declaration itself was actually first publicly read at the courthouse in White Plains, New York on July 11th, 1776. And of course, the Battle of White Plains happened in October 28, 1776. And House forces suffered 250 casualties, and of course, eventually lost the battle to the Continentals. So, pretty interesting stuff about here too. Frick, the LSU football coach is a dweeb and a cheat. Yeah, you need to do a fly-in from Tuscaloosa to. Oh yeah, that will definitely be one I consider. Tuscaloosa to to Knoxville. That will definitely be on the list. It would be quite a lengthy flight, but yeah, I can definitely do that. Um, I need to look at the date of that schedule. In October, third Saturday in October, the 17th. Let's see if there's any other games October 17th that might be interesting. Everton, Chelsea, Syria, Liga, the Bundesliga. Yeah, I guess that could work. There's not really many other games. Celtic and Hearts could be the only one I would consider. Yeah, that might actually work. With you. I guess that could work for the 17th. It's going to be all the way in October, though, but yeah, I'll definitely consider that then. Because, yeah, there'd be no other matchups in that September. The only exception would be the third Saturday in October. Where is it going to be meet this time? Yeah, October 20th. Yeah. It would probably be that day, of course. The only rivalry I would even pick for that day is Florida State Miami, because you know how important that rivalry is historically in the 90s. If you ever grew up a nice kid, Florida State Miami is going to be a big one. So yeah. Yeah, I think that would be what we do it with. Um, yeah. Thank you for pointing that out. I didn't think about the third Saturday in October. Thanks, Delaney, J.R. Delaney. Thank you for that. So White Plains, New York, Kilo Hotel Papa November is the place we'll be. Um, it's actually a minor hub airport for JetBlue. And it's mainly used by Tradewind Aviation, mainly uses it as a GA, but it's used. JetBlue uses it quite a bit as an alternative airport for New York City, because of course, with how busy a lot of New York airports, this was used quite a bit for services. Mainly does flights around the New England area, but also the eastern coast of the USA, mainly from the East Coast. So we'll land at runway 34. No, you're a good point. Like I said, I'll find some of the stuff in my research. So I got a text document here for the game day flights. So I need to actually. So yeah, I'll have to look for some new stuff while I be making here. But let's see if there's anyone flying along with us. Haven't checked out the cockpit for a bit. So pretty cool stuff. So I'll have to look for some new dates for the 24th. Just looking for games, of course. So yeah, that's just I'll be doing some looking stuff. Pretty important stuff. We'll get to the Big Apple very shortly. We're not very far from New York City. We're just gonna stop here for the first stop of the day. So let's check our fuel situation. Let's look at our fuel tanks. Okay, we're doing pretty good. We're just about 130 gallons of tank, so we're doing pretty good with the tank situation. So So yeah, so far so good here. The next leg will be quite a bit more packed with New York City. We'll make our way through Princeton. Washington Crossing will be our next stop, of course. And make our way down to Philadelphia, of course. So we'll make that. And then our last stop will be getting to DC. So yeah, I'm just mainly looking for new stuff, of course, Saturday. But I think the next one after the World Cup probably is Flamengo versus Sao Paulo. Two of the Brazilian giants of Brazilian football. Um, Flamengo second, Sao Paulo's eighth in the league. But I thought that would be great too. The biggest clubs in, two of the more historic clubs in Brazil, of course. So yeah, here we go. We're going to go ahead and disable the gyro pilot. And we're going to go ahead and prepare for the first stop of the day. So we're going to go ahead and make our way to runway 34. So should be our first land of the day. The DC-3 should be pretty easy to land. Historically, the DC-3 can take off from all sorts of different kind of airfields. Not just the airliner stuff, but it can easily take off of dirt and gravel runway strips. That's why the DC-3 is just the all-around nearly perfect commercial aircraft. It's not the fastest, but there's almost nothing you can't take off with. Let's see if I can check. Sorry if this is a bit loud for you guys. Naturally, this is going to be pretty loud. Here we go. There's our stop. Here goes the DC-3. Not bad at all. Park right here. we'll park right here, and we'll be paying a stop here for just a little bit so we get ready for the next leg. So we'll be paying a stop here, of course. So yeah, looking for the next couple of streams and stuff, see which one I pick. So we'll stop here for just a bit. Let's see. I gotta write something pretty quick on this guest book for FS Hub. So okay, so I got that written. So we're gonna go ahead and prepare for the next leg. We'll be arriving into Philadelphia International Airport for Philly. So let's get back to our destination. So heading's going to be 228 degrees. So I'm going to go ahead and adjust the rudder. So we're going to go ahead and get back to the runway. Back to the runway we once were. But yeah, the one plane I'm still waiting to get is the F-28. I know it's already out, but I'm waiting to get it on Sim Market because that's where I mainly got all the other planes in my hangar, is Sim Market. So, still waiting. Here we go. and right. So the plane takes a little bit of time to get through all this. So here we go, guys. The Big Apple. We're finally heading to New York. So here we go, White Plains. So here we're gonna fly up to 2,000 feet because, of course, we got some really tall buildings in the Big Apple we need to fly over. So we're gonna go over and talk about the Big Apple, New York City, the Big Apple, as we call it. New York City, of course, is the most populous city here in the United States. At the southern tip of New York State, one of the world's largest harbors. The city composed of 5 different boroughs: Manhattan, Brooklyn, Queens, the Bronx, and Staten Island. Each coexisted with its own county. It is the geographical and demographic center of both the Northeast megapolis and New York metro area, the largest metro area in the United States. The city is a global leader. The city is a global leader of finance, commerce, culture, tech, entertainment, media, academic, scientific input, arts, fashion, and the home of the headquarters of the United Nations. Its population is around 8.5 million people as of July 2025, distributed over 300 square miles. It's the most densely populated major city in the United States. It has more than double the population of Los Angeles, the second most populous city in the United States. This city, of course, and its metro area is 20 million people, which is the largest in the United States. It's also the premier gateway for legal immigration to the U.S., as over 800 languages are spoken in New York City to make it the most linguistically most diverse city in the world. And of course, the city is very well known for being a major center for movies, novels, movies, and television programs, and it's described as the cultural capital of the world. It's also the most expensive city in the world for expats and the highest residential rents of any American city. So, yes, New York is not cheap. So, very expensive city to live in, of course. Very big stuff, obviously. But, I mean, the United States, but New York City has so much stuff to offer. If you love arts, well, if you like the performing arts, you got Broadway. You want architecture? There's all sorts of buildings, from Dutch colonials to modern buildings like World Trade Center. The arts, of course, rich in arts, tons of museums and art galleries. Of course, cuisine. You can find almost just about any type of cuisine in New York City. Fashion. It's one of the global fashion capitals. And it's an amazing sports city, too, with the Yankees, Mets, the defending NBA champion Knicks, Brooklyn Nets, It's hosted plenty of Olympic Games, Super Bowl. A Super Bowl was even held here. World Series, NBA Finals, the Stanley Cups, and even the World Cup has been around the Big Apple. There's just nothing New York City can't do. Honestly, I could list the things New York City hasn't done. I could list all the things the Big Apple hasn't been able to do yet. That would probably be more accurate. So, yes, the big thing. Now, the main landmark we're going to be flying over today is the Statue of Liberty, and that's the main landmark in the Big Apple we'll be paying a visit to, the Statue of Liberty. This neoclassical structure of a robe and crowned woman on Liberty Island, it was a gift to the United States from the people of France. It was designed by the French sculptor Frederic Auguste Bartholdi, and his metal framework was built by Gustave Eiffel, who, yes, he also was part of his own tower, and that name sounds familiar. It's because he's the namesake of the Eiffel Tower. It was dedicated on October 28, 1886. The statue is a figure of a classically draped woman inspired by the Roman goddess of liberty, Libertas. She holds a torch high above her head with the right hand, and the left hand carries a tabula insata inscribed July 4, 1776 in Roman numerals, the date of Declaration of Independence. Her left foot steps on a broken chain shackle, commemorating the national abolition of slavery. And it was mainly given to the United States as a gift for the centennial independence, but it had to wait 10 years. And the statue has become an icon in freedom of the United States as a symbol of welcome to immigrants arriving from the United States by sea. But yet, she's been around for years, and she's not just a U.S. monument, she's also a UNESCO World Heritage Site, too. Definitely one of the most famous landmarks in the United States, the good old Statue of Liberty. So here you go. So here it is, guys. So yeah, here it is, New York City, the Big Apple. So you guys can finally see New York City. So big stuff. So yeah, here it is, New York City. Um, so, so yeah, here it is, New York City. Hmm. So yeah, here's the Statue of Liberty, guys. You can see her right in front of us. There she is, the Statue of Liberty. Right in front of us. So there she is, the statue. So I need to change the directions. So there she is. There's the Big Apple. This here to our right, that place is Governor's Island. Here in New York. This is Ellis Island, where a lot of people immigrated to. They ended up here. And yeah, you can see the big, massive buildings here in New York City. So we have officially arrived into New York City, and now we're heading to, on the way to Philadelphia. We're going to head to Washington Crossing for the next waypoint. Is Washington Crossing here in the border between Pennsylvania and New Jersey. So we'll be heading over there. So yeah. Oh, the 20th. So we're gonna be doing some more trips here as well. So I need to think about what I wanted to do for the schedule. Yeah, I'm just looking at the thing. I guess there's that too. October 11th. Oh yeah, I also didn't think about college football. Texas, Oklahoma, but yeah, I'll have to do some thinking about afterwards. So we're gonna be arriving to Washington Crossing, would be our next stop, next waypoint, I mean. So Washington Crossing, by the way, the famous Washington Crossing here in D.C. This famous crossing's location in the Delaware River, where George Washington on the 9th of December, on Christmas Day, in December 25th, 26th, during the Revolutionary War. This maneuver was the thing that led to the victory of Battle of Trenton, and now it's a U.S. national landmark composed of the U.S. state parks of Washington Crossing, New Jersey, and Washington Crossing, Pennsylvania, both of which are north of Trenton, New Jersey, which is the state capital of New Jersey. So there are two sides to it. The Pennsylvania side is the Washington Crossing Historic Park, which is about 500 acres, and it actually includes the actual embarkation site for the crossing in a 19th century inn set on the foundation of an 18th century inn that was present at the time of the crossing. And there's a memorial marker that indicates the site of the crossing. And the park also includes an attached unit 4 miles north that features Bowman Hill Tower, the Thompson Neely House, and a grist mill served the army were located around the area. Now, on the other side, the New Jersey side features the much larger 3,500-acre park, which is much larger, and it features recreational amenities, visitor center, nature center, observatory, campground, and open-air theater. Now, elements specifically relate to the crossing include the Johnson Ferry House and a stretch of the original roadway traversed by the Army during the Revolutionary War. So, pretty neat stuff. But the reason this was important was because the crossing, you had to cross the river in order to go into that. And that was an important part of the battle that was won by the American Revolution. So, pretty important stuff. So. So we should be arriving to Washington Crossing very soon. We're doing pretty good here. So once we get through the crossing, we'll make it to Philadelphia. So, oh, I still have that open. So. So once we turn left, we'll head to Philadelphia, of course. Hit the city of Philadelphia. Okay, so nothing for August. So we'll be skipping from August. So, September 5th. So yeah, just trying to work ahead, of course. Let's see who's flying along with us. So. So yeah, here's Washington Crossing. On to our left, of course. To our left is the Washington Crossing. This is where George Washington crossed the Delaware River during the American Revolution, and that's where he went. And that maneuver helped win the Battle of Trenton in 1776. Okay, so let's go ahead and prepare to and here we are. 224. So now we're going to talk about our next city, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. The most populous city in Pennsylvania and the U.S.'s sixth most populous city in the country. Its population was 1.6 million in 2020. It's now 1.57 million in 2025. Its metro is a whopping 6.3 million people. The city is famous for its culture, cuisine, and history, particularly maintaining contemporary influence in business, tech, sports, and music. This city was founded by 1862 by William Penn, a very well-known English Quaker and advocate for religious freedom. and served as the capital for the province of Pennsylvania. It has played a vital role during the American Revolution and Revolutionary War, because this was the central meeting place of the nation's founding fathers and hosted the First Continental Congress and the Second Continental Congress, which formed the Continental Army that elected George Washington's commander and adopted the Declaration of Independence on July 4th, 1776. Even after the Revolution, Philadelphia served as the nation's capital. It served as the first capital in the United States, and it became on 4 other occasions until 1800 when D.C. was built. Nowadays, Philadelphia is a city of many firsts in the United States. Most notably, the first library in the nation, hospital, medical school, capitol, university by some accounts, central bank, stock exchange, zoo, and business school. And the city contains 67 National Historic Landmarks. Most notably, of course, Independence Natural Historic Park is the most notable of them all. This historical park contains several sites associated with the American Revolution. And it's 55 acres, and it contains many of Philadelphia's most visited historic sites within the Old City and Society Hill neighborhoods. It's been nicknamed America's most important square mile due to the abundance of historic landmarks. But the main centerpiece is Independence Hall, where the Declaration of Independence and the U.S. Constitution were debated and adopted by America's founding fathers in the late 18th century. North of it is Liberty Bell, of course, which is the iconic symbol of American independence at the Liberty Bell Center. Other major places include Carpenter's Hall, where the First Continental Congress met, Old City Hall, which housed the Supreme Court, and west of it is Congress Hall, where the House represented on the first floor and U.S. Senate on the second floor. But tons of historic buildings dating to America's founding were located here, obviously. So, very important stuff. So yeah, very important place to check out here. So we'll fly over Philadelphia shortly. So here we go, guys. Philadelphia. Very shortly coming up. So, welcome to Philly. Philadelphia. This city has got a lot of things going for it, too. In terms of arts, I mean, many historical sites, lots of museums and stuff, and all sorts of stuff. Of course, cuisine. Philadelphia is famous for its cheesesteak, but also tasty cakes, Irish potato candy, hoagies, stromboli, pretzels, water ice, and more. Of course, Philadelphia is an amazing sports city, dating back to the 19th century, of course. Philadelphia is an amazing sports city, and Philadelphia has got lots of sports. The Phillies, Eagles, 76ers, Flyers, the Union, the Wings of the National Lacrosse and the WNBA. That's going to be coming in 2030. But yeah, Philadelphia is an incredible city for sports. Really cool place. Mm. So yeah, here's Independence Hall. Right below us is Independence Hall here in Philadelphia. Here's downtown. So this is Independence Hall, Independence Natural Historical Park, right in this area. This ship right here, the battleship you guys see here across the bay, that is the battleship USS New Jersey, one of the major ships that was involved in World War II. And here's our airport, Philadelphia International. So we'll stop right here in Philadelphia. We made it. Welcome to Philly, everyone. So we'll just stay right here for about a few minutes. So we'll be here for a little bit. We got one last leg left to go, everyone. We had the final leg into the city, of course, Washington, D.C. All right. So we got one last leg left to go. Washington, D.C. So D.C. will be... So we're going to go ahead and make our last stop here. We're going to make one last trip. So we're going to... Our first waypoint when we get there is the city of Baltimore, Maryland. So one final trip here this morning. So... So here we are, guys. We're heading to Baltimore now. So here we go. We're making our way down to Baltimore. I love this air. I do love the DC-3. Such a very fun aircraft to fly. I miss flying this thing, so it's good to be back in the air with this beauty. And look at it, we can make it for both tanks, main tanks. So here we are, guys. We're going to be going into DC. We got 2 more legs left to go. This is Wilmington, Delaware. This is the capital. This is actually the largest city in Delaware. The capital of Delaware is actually in Dover. So Baltimore is going to be coming up pretty soon, obviously, for the trip. So Baltimore, Maryland will be our next stop. We're just about nearly halfway to Baltimore. So the city of Baltimore, Maryland is going to be coming up next. Baltimore is the most populous city in all of Maryland. Uh, so it's not the capital, Annapolis is, but Baltimore is the most populous city in the state. And it's the U.S.'s third most populous city at 585,000, but its metro is 2.8 million people. Baltimore was actually designated as an independent city by the Constitution of Maryland in 1851. And it was once as a hunting ground by Paleo Indians, though the Baltimore was then established in 1706 to support the tobacco trade with Europe, and the town was established 23 years later in 1729. During the American Revolutionary War, Second Continental Congress briefly moved deliberations to the Henry Fight House in 1776 to 1777 prior to the capture of Philadelphia by British troops, which permitted Baltimore to serve briefly as the nation's capital. But the city is most well known military-wise for the Battle of Baltimore during the War of 1812, claiming the British bombardment Fort McHenry, during which Francis Scott Key wrote a poem that became the Star-Spangled Banner, which is the U.S.'s national anthem. The city is also famous for having some of the earliest National Register historic districts in the nation: Fells Point, Federal Hill, and Mount Vernon. And the city has more public statues and monuments per capita than any U.S. city, which is pretty crazy. Baltimore, of course, is a very rich place for culturally rich city, and its famous cuisine is the Maryland blue crabs with Old Bay seasoning, pit beef, and the chicken box, chicken wings and French fries. And it features the oldest public market system in the United States, the Lexington Market, the longest running market in the world. In the city is also the last place in America with street vendors from a horse-drawn cart. So yeah, Baltimore, really cool city. Sadly, crime has been a major issue. Has been crime, which is kind of sad because Baltimore is actually a really neat city when you look beyond that. Hey, good to see you, Red Baron Flies. I hope you're doing well. We're doing a 4th of July stream. We started in Boston, we made it down to New York City, went to Philadelphia, and now we're heading to DC. We're taking the DC-3 for this trip. Since the DC-3 would be a perfectly fine aircraft for the flight. Now, the place we'll be visiting in Baltimore, of course, is Fort McHenry National Monument. It was best served for its role during the War of 1812 when it defended Baltimore Harbor from an attack by the British Navy. On September 13th to 14th, 1814, the fort itself was built back in 1798 and was used continuously by U.S. Armed Forces through World War I and by the U.S. Coast Guard in World War II. It was actually once a national park in 1925, but it was redesignated in 1939 a U.S. national monument. Of course, the sight of the ensign inspired Francis Scott Key to write his poem "Defense of Fort McHenry," which later set to the music in the song "To Anacreon in Heaven," and then later the Star Spangled Banner, the U.S.'s national anthem. Pretty cool. Pretty neat place to visit. So, neat place to visit. So we'll go check out Fort McHenry, of course. So Baltimore's coming up, and then once we visit Baltimore, we'll head down to DC, which we'll talk about Washington, D.C. for a bit, and some of the national stuff. So we'll talk about each of the buildings here, which is the Capitol, National Memorial, the White House, and the Pentagon. So yeah, we're getting pretty close here. We're just 70 nautical miles outside of our final destination in Ronald Reagan National Airport. So, pretty cool stuff. By the way, to Baltimore, not far from Baltimore, is Martin State Airport. This was where the Martin Aircraft Company was making aircraft during the Second World War. And they produced a lot of World War II and Cold War aircraft. Some of the most famous aircraft that was built by the Martin Company include the B-26 Marauder, which served a lot during World War II. It was their most produced aircraft. They also produced parts of the B-29 Super Fortress, since Boeing had a hard time keeping up with it. The Martin A.M. Mauler was an interesting little plane. They produced a lot of P-5 and Marlin flying boats that served into the 60s. And they even produced their own license of the British Electric Canberra. Was one of the other aircraft they did. But yeah, Martin produced quite a few interesting aircraft during their time. And of course, the PBM Mariner flying boat is also pretty popular. And who can forget one of the craziest flying boats ever invented, the JRM Mars. One of the craziest flying boats ever invented. They even made their own airliner as well. They made their own twin-engine airliner as well in the 1950s. So yeah, pretty interesting aircraft company that built a lot of aircraft. So yeah, we're getting pretty close to the city of Baltimore very shortly. So I hope you're all enjoying this stream. If you do like the stream, smash the follow button and follow my Discord. We stream here Fridays, Saturday, and Sunday, though I might be holding off on the Saturday stream stuff for a while. So I don't think I might discontinue the Saturday stuff and just focus on Fridays and Sundays, of course, twice a week. So here it is, Baltimore, Maryland. So we should see Fort McHenry soon. So Fort McHenry's coming up. So let's talk a little bit about Washington, D.C., as we're only just about 20 miles out. So Washington, D.C. is our nation's capital. D.C. stands for District of Columbia. It was named after George Washington, our first president, and the district's named after for Columbia, the female personification of the nation. The U.S. Constitution advocated for its own federal district under the jurisdiction of U.S. Congress. And then the Residency Act was adopted in 1790, which approved the creation of the Capital District along the Potomac River. And it's considered the city's founding date. And then in 1800, the capital was moved to Philadelphia to Washington, D.C. Designed in 1791 by Pierre Charles Avant, the city split into quadrants that meet at the Capitol building, with 131 neighborhoods overall. The city's population is 689,000, but during the work week, it increased the population to over 1 million people. But one very interesting thing about Washington, D.C., of course, yeah, this isn't the Inner Harbor of Baltimore, is it? Yes, it's actually in Baltimore Harbor, actually. The city itself anchors the southern end of the northeast megalopolis, the seat of the U.S. federal government, and it's an important world political capital. And the city hosts buildings that are federal government headquarters, including the White House, Capitol, Supreme Court building, and multiple federal departments and agencies. So pretty cool stuff here about DC. We should begin here. And yes, this is the Inner Harbor, of course. Fort McHenry is right over here. See this area here? That is Fort McHenry. We're heading there. We'll be flying over there. And then once we head over there, we'll make our way to Washington, D.C. We'll talk a little bit about each of the landmarks here in D.C. we'll be paying a visit to. So we'll talk briefly, we'll fly over, and then we'll make our way into D.C. for the last leg. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the information from this stream. I did this over the past week. So yeah, here's Baltimore. Fort McHenry's right over here. Let's see, there's Fort McHenry. So Fort McHenry is over here. So now we're making our way to Washington, D.C. So D.C. is our last stop. So let's go ahead and get this back to heading. Now we're heading to Washington, D.C. First landmark that we'll be paying a visit, the U.S. Capitol building will be the first one we'll be paying a visit. This is where the U.S. Congress is seated, located on Capitol Hill at the eastern edge of the National Mall in D.C. Though it's no longer the geographic center of the national capital, it forms the origin point for the street numbering system here in the district. And it's built in neoclassical style. Now, central sections of the building you see here were built in 1800, right where the Congress was convened. The building was partially destroyed by the burning of Washington in 1814 by British forces, but it was fully restored within 5 years. The massive dome was completed back in 1866, just after the Civil War. And it's about 280 feet high and 96 feet diameter. Of course, the floor plans, there's 5 floors in the district with 16 acres of land. Now, of course, both of these elevations are mainly referred to as fronts. And although the east front was mainly intended for reception of visitors' dignitaries, the west front is now used for presidential inauguration ceremonies. And of course, the Capitol grounds of Capitol Hill played host to major events. every 4 years. During inauguration, the Capitol is outfitted with a platform and grand staircase, and annual events include Independence Day celebrations and National Memorial Day concert. The general public has paid a number of individuals lying and staying in the Capitol, including former presidents, senators, and other officials. As well. So those are some of the famous things about the U.S. Capitol building. The next is the White House, and this, of course, is the building for the executive branch. It has been the residence of every U.S. president since John Adams in 1800, and it's the minimum for the executive office. And it was designed by the Irish-born architect James Hoban in neoclassical style, and he modeled the building on the Leinster House in Dublin. Mainly the building, now the present day complex of the White House includes the executive residence with 6 stories, ground floor, state floor, second floor, and third floor, and a 2-story basement, the West Wing, the Eisenhower Executive House building, which previously served the State Department, and the Blair House, a guest residence. Of course, in 2025, the Trump administration demolished the East Wing to make room for a planned new East Wing, which includes the ballroom as well. So, pretty interesting stuff, though there's some interesting evolution of the White House. Truman reconstructed a lot of it between the 1940s, reconstructed it. But there actually have been people who've been born in the White House. Most notably, the granddaughter of Ulysses Grant, Julia Dent, Grant Constantine. And there's even 2 presidents that actually died here in the White House, William Henry Harrison and Zachary Taylor. So pretty interesting stuff here about the White House. The White House itself is 55,000 square feet. The next building is the Washington Monument. This 555-foot tall freestanding obelisk was built to commemorate George Washington. Standing east of the reflection pool, it's made of bluestone gneiss for the foundation and granite for the construction. And the outside facing consists of 3 different kinds of white marble. It's actually the 3rd tallest monumental column in the world, only trailing the Juche Tower in Pyongyang, North Korea, which is 560 feet, and the San Jacinto Monument in Houston. In fact, at one point, this was the world's tallest structure, and it held that title for 5 years until it was overtaken by the Eiffel Tower in Paris, which is pretty cool. In the base is 50 U.S. flags on a large circle pole set around the monument, and that's mainly for each U.S. state. So yeah, pretty cool stuff. It's 205,000 people visited it last year, of course, the Washington Monument. It actually was taller than the Cologne Cathedral, which that building was once the tallest in the world. From 1880 to 1890. So yeah, pretty funny to think about it as well. Super tall building, of course. And apparently, you can visit it, mainly with an elevator, of course. People can go up through the elevator to see the top of it. Then you have the Lincoln Memorial that was dedicated in 1922, the Lincoln Memorial. And of course, along inside of it is the statue of the large interior Lincoln statue that was carved by marble by the Picarelli brothers. It's one of several memorials that have been built to honor the U.S. president, and has been mainly used as a symbolic center for race relations and civil rights. After all, this place was the site of many famous speeches, most notably Martin Luther King's "I Have a Dream" speech that was delivered on August 28, 1963, at the end of the March on Washington. And more than 7 million people visit annually. And in 2023, it went to 8 million people. And then the last one we'll talk about here, the last slide for today, is the Pentagon. The Pentagon is, of course, the headquarters for the Department of Defense. And it was actually took about only just 2 years to build this thing. But it was built during World War II as the headquarters of the U.S. military. This is the world's second largest office building with 6.5 million square feet of floor space, 3.7 million square feet of which are used as offices. It has 5 sides, hence Pentagon, 5 floors above ground, 2 basement levels, and 5 ring corridors per floor with a total of 17.5 miles of corridors. And about 23,000 military and civilian employees work at the Pentagon. Of course, on September 11th, the Pentagon was attacked and damaged by the September 11th attacks when 5 Al-Qaeda hijackers flew American Airlines Flight 77 into the western side of the building. And it was so, but thankfully it was completely rebuilt afterwards. So, yeah, that's it, everyone. That covers our slides here today. So that is everything, guys. So that's it. We'll just fly around DC. We'll do some flying around the nation's capital. Gotta slow this down a little bit. Gotta slow her down significant so we can take a little bit of the sights here at DC. So to our left is the old RFK Stadium. That's, of course, being demolished. And that's going to be replaced by a brand new stadium for the Washington Commanders. Over here, if you look over in this area, you can see Nationals Park, home of the Washington Nationals, the Major League Baseball's Nationals that have been part of DC since 2005. And then here it is. So, yep, here we go. Washington, D.C. This is the U.S. Capitol building. Behind it is the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court is in the other building right below it. The White House is located around here. There's the White House over here by the Washington Monument. This here is the Lincoln Memorial. This one here is the Jefferson Memorial. And finally, this building here is the Pentagon. Now, if you've ever been flying the DCA, the one thing in DCA that you need to be careful about when flying the DC Washington National is, of course, it has some of the strictest landing requirements of any major U.S. airport. That's because, of course, with all these government buildings around it, it's going to make it a pain to land. That's why they have a specific approach for it. Yeah, very steep approach in the DC-3. Steep landing, but that should be enough to get her down. And she's down. we did it. We made it to DC. So, and that's it, everyone. We made it to Washington, D.C., here in our nation's capital. So, guys, thank you all so much for coming here. Well, I think we're going to rate Allison Johnson today. Actually, we're going to raid our good friend Foxtrot. We never really raided Phlox before. So let's go ahead and say hello to my old friend Foxtrot. So, guys, we'll be seeing you guys on Sunday for our National Park series. We'll be going to Arches National Park. So we'll see you guys all then. Take care, everyone, and have a great rest of your day. And happy 4th of July. Goodbye, everyone. See you soon.